The words hit me like a sudden brake on an empty road. "Drive somewhere private," my boss's wife said softly from the passenger seat, and in that second my hands tightened on the steering wheel, my heart thudding so loud I was sure she could hear it. I remember thinking how strange it was that a single sentence could threaten everything I had built, everything I believed I was. The city lights blurred past the windshield, and I knew that whatever happened next would change my life, one way or another, forever. I had always lived by simple rules. Work hard. Stay honest. Don't cross lines you can't uncross. That was how I'd survived my way up from a cramped one-room apartment to a decent job as an executive assistant at a fast-growing firm. My boss, Mr. Harris, was demanding but fair, the kind of man who noticed effort and rewarded loyalty. His wife, Claire, was the opposite of intimidating, always kind, always smiling, the type of person who made you feel seen in a room full of important people. When she called me earlier that evening and asked if I could give her a ride home after a charity dinner, I didn't hesitate. It felt harmless. Ordinary. Safe. But nothing felt safe now. The air inside the car was heavy, thick with unspoken questions. My mind raced ahead to consequences I didn't want to imagine. Was this a test? A mistake? A misunderstanding about to ruin my career? I glanced at her, hoping to see some sign of a joke, but her gaze was fixed out the window, her fingers twisting together in her lap. She looked nervous. Fragile, even. That scared me more than anything else. I cleared my throat, my voice unsteady. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound calm, professional, normal. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I just need to talk," she said. "Somewhere quiet." The way she said it wasn't seductive. It was tired. That detail mattered, though I didn't understand why yet. I turned off the main road and drove toward a small park near the river, the kind of place that went unnoticed at night. As I parked under a dim street lamp, my thoughts spiraled. I thought of my mother's voice, always telling me that integrity isn't proven when it's easy, but when it costs you something. I thought of my boss, who trusted me with sensitive information, who had once said, "I value people I can rely on." I wondered if this was the moment that would define whether I truly deserved that trust. The engine clicked as it cooled, and silence settled between us. Claire finally spoke, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry to put you in this position," she said. I didn't know who else to ask. She turned toward me then, and I saw tears welling in her eyes. Not the tears of drama, but of exhaustion. "My marriage is falling apart," she whispered. "And no one sees it." The tension in my chest loosened just a fraction, replaced by something else, something heavier. She wasn't asking for something inappropriate. She was asking not to be alone. Still, the line was thin, and I could feel how easily one wrong step could blur it beyond repair. I listened as she spoke about loneliness inside a house that looked perfect from the outside, about conversations that had turned into schedules and silences, about feeling invisible beside a man admired by everyone else. I didn't interrupt. I didn't judge. I just listened. When she finished, she wiped her face and laughed weakly. "I guess I just needed someone to hear me," she said. "I didn't mean to scare you." I smiled gently, though my hands were still shaking. "It's okay," I replied. "I'm glad you told me. But I think it's important we're careful." She nodded, understanding passing between us without needing explanation. I drove her home after that, the city lights clearer now, my thoughts steadier. As she stepped out of the car, she paused. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For being decent." The door closed, and I sat there for a long moment, breathing, realizing that doing the right thing often feels like standing still while your heart runs a marathon. I thought the night was over. I was wrong. The next morning, I walked into the office thinking I had survived the hardest part, unaware that the real test was just beginning. My boss called me into his office before I'd even set my bag down. His expression was unreadable, and my stomach dropped. "Have a seat," he said. I did, my mind replaying every second of the previous night, every word, every pause. He looked at me carefully. "Claire told me you helped her last night," he said. "She said you listened when she needed someone." I swallowed, bracing myself. "I want you to know," he continued, "that I appreciate your professionalism. Not everyone would have handled that situation with integrity." Relief washed over me so strongly I nearly laughed. But he wasn't finished. He leaned back, his voice softer now. "I haven't been the husband I should be," he admitted. Hearing that from her, it hurt. But maybe it's what I needed. There was a vulnerability in him I had never seen before. In that moment, I realized how often we reduce people to roles: boss, wife, employee, forgetting the fragile human truths underneath. Weeks passed, and the office atmosphere changed in subtle ways. Mr. Harris left work earlier sometimes. He smiled more. Claire stopped by once, not to confide, but to thank me again, this time with a warmth that felt healed, not desperate. As for me, I carried the lesson quietly, letting it shape how I showed up in my own life. Looking back, I understand now why I froze when she asked me to drive somewhere private. It wasn't fear of scandal. It was the weight of choice. The realization that in a single moment, we are all given the chance to become the person we claim to be. Integrity isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It lives in the decisions no one applauds, in the boundaries we hold when it would be easier to let them fall. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt that pressure, that pause before a choice that could change everything, remember this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest. Sometimes the most inspiring thing you can do is simply stay true to yourself, even when your heart is racing, even when the road ahead feels uncertain. Because in the end, character is built not by the moments that tempt us, but by the moments we choose to stand firm and drive forward with dignity, right? The next test didn't arrive loudly or dramatically. It came quietly, the way real challenges often do, disguised as normal days and familiar routines. I thought everything had settled after that morning in my boss's office, but life has a way of circling back to unfinished lessons. A week later, Claire called me again. This time her voice was steadier, but there was urgency beneath it. "I just need 10 minutes, she said. "Please." I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. When I ended the call, I stared at my phone for a long moment, feeling that same knot tighten in my chest. The easy thing would have been to say no. The right thing was harder to define. We met in a public cafe near the office, sunlight pouring through the windows, people talking all around us. It felt intentional, like she was protecting both of us. She didn't waste time. She told me she and her husband were going to counseling, that speaking the truth out loud had cracked something open between them. "But healing is messy," she said. "And I needed to tell you something face to face." My pulse quickened again, but I stayed quiet, grounded in the choice I'd made before. She looked at me with a seriousness that carried no confusion. "You could have taken advantage of my weakness that night," she said. "Many people would have. I need you to know how much that mattered." It reminded me that good people still exist. Her words hit deeper than any accusation ever could. I realized then that integrity doesn't just protect you from doing wrong, it gives others permission to hope again. That afternoon, rumors began to ripple through the office. Small looks. Pauses in conversation when I walked by. I learned quickly that doing the right thing doesn't always come with instant rewards. Someone had seen us at the cafe. Someone had started talking. My boss called me in again, not angry, but tired. "People are saying things," he said honestly. "I know they're wrong. But I need to know I can trust you to stay above all of it." I met his eyes and answered without rehearsing. "You can," I said. "Even if it costs me." Days passed. The whispers faded when nothing happened, when no scandal followed the story people wanted to believe. Trust, once tested, began to solidify instead of break. My boss promoted me months later, not with grand praise, but with a quiet acknowledgement. "Character," he said, "is rare. Don't lose it." I carried that sentence with me like armor. Looking back now, I understand the real reason I froze that night in the car. It wasn't fear of losing my job or reputation. It was the instinctive understanding that some moments are crossroads, and once crossed the wrong way, you never fully return. I learned that strength isn't proven by what you take, but by what you refuse. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep your distance, hold your line, and let respect speak louder than desire. If this story reaches you at a moment when you're facing your own difficult choice, hear this clearly. You don't need applause for doing what's right. You don't need validation from others. All you need is the courage to choose integrity when no one is watching, because those are the moments that shape who you become. And long after the tension fades and the fear quiets, you'll be left with something priceless: peace, self-respect, and the knowledge that when it mattered most, you didn't move, you stood firm.